after the outbreak of the First World War among the European tribes. Then came in Africa called trade unions. At this point in time, the Africans were united. Workers from different parts of the countries came together and formed what we refer to as trade unions. And after the First World War in 1914, the working conditions of our African people was of course difficult. The price of goods and services here in Africa was high. There was low standard of living in Africa. Some of the workers were laid off. Their salaries were cut off by half because of the effects of the First World War of 1914 among the European powers. The African people who were recruited to go and fight for their European powers, when they came back, some of them were unable to secure work here in Africa. To survive in Africa after the First World War of 1914 was difficult. Then our African people, our African workers who were working in the civil service sector, they came together and formed what is referred to as trade unions. In Nigeria, trade unions emerged. In Guinea-Conakry, Sekou Touré was a trade unionist. He formed a trade union and of course then later became a political party. That's why he was the first president of Guinea-Conakry. In Ghana, trade unions emerged in Ghana. Workers in Ghana at the time, they came together and formed what they call trade unions. They fought for the interests of their members. Then trade unions are a group of workers at that time who came together to protect the interests of their members against the colonial government. Trade unions play an important role in the national struggle. They serve as a vehicle for aggregating and articulating their problems for the colonial government and making sure that their problems were addressed. They championed the national struggle. The leaders of the various trade unions in Africa, they later end up forming their own political party. That is why trade unions serve as a training ground, a recruitment center for the leaders of the various political parties. Most of the African leaders who end up forming their political party, first, they were trade unionists. They serve as a leader. They led the workers here in this country for the increase in their wages and salaries to the colonial administrations. That is why in the Gambia, there were trade unions. The first trade union that emerged here in the Gambia was called the Battles Trade Union, which was formed by Edward Van der Sumol in 1929 and Sir Umar Fai, a businessman, a Wolof businessman. The activities of this trade union called the Battles Trade Union was only confined in the colony, because it was in the colony. That's why you had more workers during the colonial period. The trading companies in the colony at that time, they decided to lay down some of the workers and cut their salaries by half, which angered some of our workers or our civil servants during the colonial period. They were led by Edward Francis Smollett, and the slogan of the strike was "No taxation without proper representations." Our people should not pay tax until and unless they know where their monies have been spent. It was during this strike when most of the workers they converted in Batos Banjul at the time, with their bands, raising them up, wanting the colonial administration to increase their working conditions, wanting the colonial government to employ some of the workers who were laid off by the trading companies. When these workers were on their strike, the colonial administration sent the soldiers to go and put down the strike. And then that was the time when the workers also they armed with stones. And during this strike, most of the shops were looted and burned. Thousands of dollars here in the Gambia were missing as a result of the strike, which was organized by E.S. Smollett. And a few months later, the colonial government went in for negotiations with E.S. Smollett, and later then E.S. Smollett emerged as a hero. Then in 1937 came another trade unions called the Gambia Teachers Union. And this trade union also emerged as the second trade unions that ever emerged in the Gambia, formed by John Qualified. It was formed to protect the interests of the teachers and to increase their well-being. Because of this trade union called the Gambia Teachers Union, it made it possible for the British administrations to establish what they called Teachers Training College at that time during the colonial period. It was formed in order to solve the problems of the teachers or their problems to the colonial government. Then in 1959 came a trade union called the Gambia Workers Union here in this country, formed by Mumudi Ijado. This was also another trade union that emerged here in this country to protect the interests of the Gambian workers at that time to the colonial government. And this trade union was able to address the problems of the workers to the colonial government. And then it organized its first successful strike in 1960 before the 1960 constitutional talk here in the Gambia. Most of the Gambian people who ended up forming political parties, they were trade unionists. What were the contributions or the roles played by the trade unions during the nationalist struggle? They served as training grounds for various political parties. Most of the party leaders at that time, they passed through the trade unions and they were able to generate some ideas, some knowledge and experience about politics. They also served as a recruitment center for various party leaders. They were served as a training ground. They recruited the various party leaders during the colonial period. Trade unions. The leaders of the various trade unions also play an important role for the Gambia's attainment of her political independence, such as E.S. Small, John Qualified, Mumudi Ijado. And that's why John Qualified was described as the watchdog of the Gambia, the founding fathers of the Gambian politics.
Support the channel by buying me coffee. The link will be on the description. Your support will be highly appreciated.
Watch these videos here or our history playlist.